Hello, I'm Jeff MacDonald, correspondent for the Living Church, and I'm here with Kevin Eckstrom, who is Communications Director at the National Cathedral and the former editor of Religion News Service.
Yes.
Where Kevin was in that role for
A long time.
a long time.
9 years as editor and 6 years as reporter.
Okay.
So 15 years total.
Yeah. So you have been watching the landscape of religious life for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a new vantage. And you can help us think about General Convention from a couple of points of view.
Sure.
You can first tell us how you got here today.
So I'm actually here for a fairly short time, just a couple of days. But the cathedral is exhibiting here at convention, and so I'm part of that. But the other part is we're hosting a reception for all of the convention delegates to welcome them to General Convention, but also to tell them about the cathedral and all that it has to offer folks beyond the Beltway. People think of the National Cathedral as a place you go when you visit Washington, and it's certainly that. But we also have a lot of online offerings for the church, and we do online pilgrimages and online worship resources, and a lot of what we do is live streamed and webcast. So it's really just reminding folks of what the cathedral has to offer.
In the past, you come as a reporter.
Yes.
Okay. And so, as you come here now, how's it feel being on the other side?
It feels a little bit like the first time all over again, because when I was here, I knew a lot of the people, I knew a lot of the other reporters. Most of those folks aren't here this time. And a lot of the bishops have changed, and a lot of the delegates that I would know, just aren't here. So I feel very much like a first timer, even though I've been here before. But it's a strange feeling, because in the past I had to observe all of this from the outside, and I couldn't really have an opinion, and I couldn't really say what I thought, maybe. But now there's much more of a sense of personal investment that this is my church. Who's meeting here, and I'm a part of it, and I'm not just on the outside looking in, but now I'm very much on the inside looking out and trying to figure out how we as the cathedral, but also the church more broadly, how we talk to the world. So it's a different vantage point, but I think having been here in my other life as a journalist gives me a unique perspective to see how those messages are received by the outside world. I do kind of miss filing remotely and having a dateline and a byline and all of that kind of stuff. But the flip side of it is that I feel a little bit more liberated to not have to put myself in this very professional box.
Right. And you're able to think about what kind of outcomes you'd like to see.
Right.
With this. And are there some that you are particularly thinking about?
So, a lot of attention on the election for the presiding bishop, and the cathedral has a bit of a connection there, because it's not only the mother church for the Diocese of Washington, but it's the seat of the presiding bishop for the national church. So the cathedral is the presiding bishop's church, and so when he is formally installed in November, he'll be doing it at the cathedral. So he will be very much part of our life, and we hope to be part of his life as well. And I don't have any favorites, and I don't have any inside track, but I'm really captivated by Bishop Curry. I think he could be a really charismatic, dynamic presiding bishop, especially at this time. Ian Douglas from Connecticut is a longtime colleague and friend. I worked with him a lot over the years, covering the Episcopal Church and the Anglican Communion, and so there's part of me that's rooting for him to win as well. But I think any of these guys I think would be great. But I'm really sort of captivated by the dynamism of Bishop Curry.
Which do you have a sense of which qualities are most important to have in the presiding bishop? What the presiding bishop needs to be in terms of qualities, traits, skills? For this moment in history?
So again, I'm not lobbying for Bishop Curry, but I happened to hear him earlier today, and I think he put it very well, is that the presiding bishop is both the CEO, the chief executive officer. He has to make the place run, but he's also the CEO, the chief evangelism officer. And the presiding bishop is the public face of the church to the nation and the world. And people pay attention to what the presiding bishop says. And so I think you have to be an able administrator, and you have to be able to harness people's talents to do the work of the church and do it with an eye on finances and budget and all of that kind of stuff. But you have to do it in kind of a compelling way that is going to invite people to listen to you. So I think one of the things that Bishop Jeffress Schori has been able to do is just by the fact that she's a woman, and she's the first woman, people pay attention to her just because she's unique in that way. I think having an African American presiding bishop, again, not that he's the favorite or my favorite necessarily, but the symbolism of that would go beyond just symbolism, actually. And I think we're in this really strange moment in our national life, talking about race, everything from Ferguson to police brutality to the Confederate flag. And I think having an African American presiding bishop leading a predominantly white church could really be able to speak in a compelling, authentic way. Mm-hmm. So I would be excited to see what he could bring to the job.
In terms of what it would be more than symbolism, can you say any more of what it would be?
So part of what intrigues me about him is that he's very much an evangelical in a way, and not just an evangelical in the political, theological sense that we often think of, but he's much more of an evangelical in the Billy Graham sort of way, and then, he comes out of North Carolina. So, but he isn't afraid to talk about faith, and he talks about it in a very personal sort of way, and he doesn't talk about theology or canons or these fancy words that the Episcopalians love to throw around. He talks about it like a real person, and what I think is interesting and what's maybe even a little unsettling about him is that he gets so excited when he does it. And I think the church could use a little bit of that right now. Episcopalians have this reputation, somewhat proudly, of being a little reserved, being a little staid, and not wanting to rock the boat too much. And he comes in and he throws that all out the window and says, this is who we are, let's be happy about it, let's proclaim it. And I think, the Episcopal Church has gone through a very rough patch the last decade. And I've seen that, in my previous life as a reporter. I've written a lot of those stories. But now I think the church has finally calmed down a little bit, and I think it has a much better sense of who it is. And not that the fighting is over, but the fighting, we've moved beyond that. And it's strange for me to say we. But I think the church isn't so obsessed with its internal fight, and now can start to turn its attention to its message to the outside world. And you need to have somebody in the top slot who is charismatic, and that people will want to look to him or her for what they're going to say.
What do you think is most important for the church after this rough patch of a decade? What's needed in your view that could maybe come out of General Convention? Anything specific that could really help move things forward?
So, everybody is sort of poring over the numbers from the latest Pew survey, which showed that the number of unidentified, unaffiliated, secular Americans is growing to an all-time high. It's almost 1 in 5, maybe it's a little bit more than 1 in 5 Americans who have no religious identity. And Episcopalians are very good at speaking to themselves. And I don't think we need to worry about that as much, but it's speaking to those 1 in 5 Americans who don't have a place, and they're not maybe even looking for a place. But I think what the church can do is really what St. Francis said, is preach the gospel, but only use words when necessary. And so let our actions sort of speak for themselves. So 2 weeks ago, the cathedral had a contingent that marched in the DC Gay Pride Parade. And I can't tell you, it was the first time I had ever been in the parade. I'd seen it a lot of times. And the faces, the expressions on people's faces when they see you coming around the corner, and they see you not only as a religious group, but as a church, and as for us, such a visible church. And to see us be there in solidarity with them, it just, people were sort of flummoxed by the whole thing. And they were really cheering and applauding. And I got a message on Facebook about 3 days ago from somebody who was at the parade and said, I've been looking for a church for a while, but I didn't know if I could find one that would accept me. But the very fact that you were at the parade tells me everything I want to know, and I want to know how to get involved. And so that's the kind of witness I think that the church can do. And so, you know, it is evangelism. It's about spreading the gospel, but doing it in a very generous sort of way, in a way that will resonate with that big share of Americans who don't have a religious identity. But I think we have something to offer them.
Of course, one of the big issues that they're talking about here at convention is the marriage question and the changing of the canons. And if the canons are changed here, it will be the first church in the Anglican Communion to do that redefining of marriage. Tell me, if you can, about the historical significance of that. Of course, being the first, it's obviously history making, but I wonder what the significance is beyond here for the American Church and for the Anglican Communion. Would it make the church something of an outlier? Would it make the church maybe the first domino in a series to fall, or what do you think?
So, this is, I would say, significant but not surprising. I mean, it's no secret that the Episcopal Church, by and large, welcomes LGBT members into its ranks. And there are probably more dioceses than not that actually allow marriage. But what's significant is that Episcopalians as a group and as an institution put a great value on words and on the written page. And so, I mean, there's a reason why there's a Book of Common Prayer. I mean, it's if it's not written down, it doesn't exist almost in this church. And so for them to say, we value this so highly that we are going to make a written change and that everybody's going to be able to use it, that speaks volumes. I mean, Episcopalians as a group don't know a way of speaking louder than to change the liturgy to allow for something. So I don't think that they could make a bigger statement as to where they are. But again, it comes back to that whole idea of evangelism and putting actions behind the words. So if this church really does value all of its LGBT members, then make them full citizens in the church by opening all the sacraments officially in a way. Now, how is that going to play out in the rest of the communion? You know, I think it certainly will be noticed. I don't know that it will actually change that much because, again, I don't know that many people would be surprised that we did this. One of the other macro challenges facing all churches, not only the rising secularism in the country, but millennials and younger people who they are attracted to the Episcopal Church largely because of its liturgy and its the history and the rich tradition of theology and worship. But millennials and younger Americans also highly value authenticity, and so there's a potential there, I think, for the church to come out and say, this is who we are, and millennials can smell a scam a mile away, and Gen X is very much the same way. They're very suspicious and leery of institutions, but if they find one that is authentic to itself, there's attraction there, and I think there's potential for the church to grow just by being true to who it is.
Yep.
Sound like an evangelist for the Episcopal Church.
I think you might be finding your calling as we talk it through, your new calling and your new role. Well, it's been great having you here.
Thanks.
Kevin Eckstrom. Thank you for joining us on The Living Church.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
All
Anytime.
right.